Hey, Father Michael here. I grew up on the water, as I've said many times, and I live in a place now where there's not much water. There are three alleged rivers that really are kind of murky streams. And so I grew up on what I now refer to as a real lake, not the little puddles that I'm accustomed to seeing around the Indiana cornfields. The lakes here are so small that, not only can you see and greet your neighbors across on the other shore, but you can tell what they're wearing, if their boots are laced, and even if their roots are showing and they probably need to do a little touch up with some Just for Men. Not like this guy who just did his magic on Saturday. Anyway, the lake I grew up on was 60 miles long, 30 miles across, a real lake. Some of the best times of my childhood and young adult years were spent on that lake. And also some of the scariest. I remember one time I decided to take the little skiff out, and I was going to go down the river where the Fox River meets the lake, which is a very turbulent little stretch of water, because the current is literally taking your little boat, and I'm trying to row, stick close to the shore, but the current has me, and I'm being drawn out further and further, and I don't have a motor on the boat. It's just two oars and me and a lot of Our Fathers and Hail Marys as I'm being carried out into the middle of the lake, probably 10 miles off my plan for the day. But that wasn't even the scariest. That happened at night one time. So a friend of mine had a small sailboat. And we would often sail out into the water to get some sun or, do a little fishing or, most times just do nothing. just go out there and live our best 20-something lives without a care in the world, We also had some pretty terrifying adventures, mostly weather related. The most dramatic was the evening that we decided, without checking the weather report, we just decided that we were going to take the boat out to the middle of the lake, 15 miles out, so we could watch the sun set over our hometown. And I'll never forget it because it was breathtakingly beautiful. You could see a couple of the bridges. You could see the bright orange sky, of the sun and the clouds, and then all of that turning so many colors of blue and purple and just gorgeous, And the lights of the city, eventually started to pop on with, after the sun set. And it was just a beautiful, peaceful scene. But wait a minute. What is that on the horizon that looks like mountains in the distance? Oh, those are storm clouds. Suddenly, the winds shift and we're being taken out even a little further than we wanted to be. So we're trying to make a plan to get back, and we're watching, and we're getting closer to safety and to home. Clouds are thick and dark, and the wind is mysterious, like there's something big coming. And then we hear those tornado sirens, the civil defense sirens that basically say, head for shelter, a tornado has been spotted in this county. So there we are, out in the middle of the lake. And the storm starts to hit us. The wind is horrendous. the rain, big drops that hurt when they hit the skin. And we really had no choice. After we saw the first lightning strike in the lake, we had no choice but to tip the boat over on its side. Life vests on, of course, because you always do that. Riding the mast on the water, in the waves, in a storm, in the dark, praying that we would not get struck by lightning and be fried. In a word, it was terrifying and stressful. Whenever I hear that story in the Gospels of Jesus being in the boat with his disciples, like in Mark chapter 4, I invariably, in my memory, I go back to that terrifying night of riding out the tornado on the lake. But more than that, I still find myself, like we all do, in some pretty fearful situations, unsure of what I need to do next. Unsure that if I can even do what I need to do next. Unsure if maybe the right answer is that I should do nothing except pray and still myself in the silence, and God will let it all work out. I just get in those places. I think we all do. Sometimes it does indeed, as it says in Mark's version of the story, it does indeed feel like Jesus is fast asleep in my tiny little boat. But I may not know much for a senior citizen, but I know this much. I've learned that he is still with me on the boat, even if it seems like he's napping or not bothered by the storm that I've sailed into. Isaiah 43 kind of echoes this. Verse 2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." It ties in perfectly again with my childhood and young adulthood living on the lake. And like that story in the Gospels, I have to remember that I'm in the same situation as those disciples. There was no way that those disciples were going to capsize or drown with Jesus on board. The same is true for me. The same is true for you. I continue to make choices in my life that are not in my highest good or in my best interest. I continue to experience challenges and frustrations and straight up failures, as well as successes and moments when I'm doing the victory dance. I continue to take risks all the time as I choose to continue my priestly ministry, even in the face of opposition and misunderstanding and straight up apathy. I'm always second guessing myself again and again and again. But through it all, I just have to keep reminding myself that Jesus is still in the boat with me. He might appear to be napping. He might be completely silent, but he's still there. He hasn't ever abandoned me. He's not ever going to abandon me. So this morning, just perhaps an overly simple thought. We're not alone in this life. Life is a straight up struggle sometimes. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to second guess yourself. It's okay to lose a little sleep. But somewhere in all of that, I think we should take some reassurance from the gospel stories and just trust that Jesus is on board with us all the time. Pray with me. Loving God of the storm, we come into your presence in this moment full of gratitude for all the times you have guided us to safety. All the times when you have awakened in us a sense of security and peace, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of the chaos that we created by ourselves and by our choices. We lift up into your gracious care today all those who are being tossed about on stormy seas, for all of those who are feeling abandoned, for those who are stuck in a loop of always second-guessing themselves, and for those whose faith is even tinier than a mustard seed. We lift them up into your care, loving Abba God, praying for their peace of mind, praying that you will guide them by safe passage to the other shore. For all of the times that we have forgotten your presence, help us instead today to be extra mindful of the little ways you reveal your presence to us. Amen. And now may the God of the storm, the one who brings every one of us to safety, be with you today and with all those you love, with the blessing of our mighty God, the Creator, the Redeemer, and the Sanctifier. Amen. See you tomorrow.